Hello guys, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be diving into what inspired Bob Marley to write some of his biggest hits. From doing my research on this particular topic, I love how he translated what he went through in his life, albeit negative or positive, and turned it all into a story so we could all experience his memories through his music. He created such powerful and beautiful music that will last longer than anything on this planet, in my opinion. Bob Marley's words have inspired so many artists like Buju Banton, Wyclef Jean, Rihanna, Sublime and The Police, amongst many more. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share the video with all beings on this wonderful planet. Let's get into today's video. From the summer of 1975 onward, the song No Woman No Cry was the highlight at nearly every show of Bob Marley and the Wailers played. A recording of the song from July 18th, 1975 show at the Lyceum in London so well captured the feedback loop of excitement between the band and the audience that it became Marley's top 10 single in England. A video of June 1977 show at the Rainbow Theatre in London allows us to see what was happening. The wiry singer in his denim jeans and patchwork shirt darts back and forth during the intro. He grabs his mic with his left hand, lifts his right above his head, shuts his eyes, tilts his bearded face upward and half pleads, half moans, the hymnal chorus repeating the phrase, "No woman, no cry," 4 times. The verses tell the story of his teenage self lounging around a bonfire in the courtyard of a Kingston public housing project with his friends, wondering what their slim prospects might amount to, trying to reassure his girlfriend that everything's going to be alright. By the time the final chorus rolls around and the title line is echoed by the 3 female singers and by the audience as well, soon everyone in the hall is sitting by that bonfire hoping against hope that the reassurance can overcome the tears. Less than 4 years later, Marley died of cancer at the age of 36, but instead of diminishing after his death, his influence only grew larger, releasing in 1984 Legend, a Bob Marley's greatest hits collection that includes No Woman No Cry became one of the best-selling albums of all time. Last year marked the 75th anniversary of his birth, but the fascination with Marley's abbreviated career remains as strong as ever. Last fall, the Bob Marley YouTube channel offered a 12-part documentary series, Bob Marley A Legacy, accompanied by a series of digital EPs offering rare mixes of his songs. Universal Music released a 12-disc box set, The Complete Island Recordings, in 3 different versions, on CD, on vinyl pressed at Marley's old Tough Gong headquarters in Kingston, and on a vinyl remastered at Abbey Road Studios in London. Each set included 9 studio albums, the 2 live albums released in his lifetime, and the Legend anthology. In addition, Marley's June 13th, 1980 concert in Dortmund, Germany during his final tour was released as a 3 LP vinyl set, Uprising Live. All this activity raises irresistible questions about the Jamaican native. What might have happened had Marley responded to his cancer sooner and returned to work, with the disease in remission? What would the rest of his career have looked like? What was the source of his appeal while he was alive? What makes him the most famous entertainer from a developing nation even today? Is it his anti-colonial politics, his mystical homegrown religion, his championing of marijuana, his singing, his on-stage charisma, his great band? All of these factors play a role, but the foundation for everything was his songwriting. Reggae has seen better singers, better guitarists, fiercer ideologues, more fervent spiritualists, but the genre has never seen a better songwriter. His closest competitors, Jimmy Cliff and Frederick Toots Hibbert, failed to produce half as many enduring songs, tunes that are still sung by everyone from the local reggae band at a legalized pot rally to be decked out soul jazz singer at a downtown nightclub. I would not say he was one of the greatest singers of all time, says Maxi Priest, a Londoner with Jamaican parents, and a singer with a dozen top 50 British singles. I wouldn't put him in the same category as Dennis Brown or Alton Ellis in Jamaica, or Marvin Gaye and Luther Vandross in the States, but I would say he had a way of putting lyrics together and knew how to use his voice to put them across. Bob had a way of making the song he was singing feel like it was your song, not just his. Bob has to be one of the greatest songwriters of all time. His songwriting has proved that it translates to every race and every country. I've travelled all over, and everywhere I go, I hear a Bob Marley song. He had that simplicity. He didn't overcomplicate things. He was never too sappy. He always had a level of consciousness. His wording, his way of writing was very simple, very easy, very country, like folk music. He had an art about him. It is often forgotten that Marley was a country kid. He was born and raised in a small town of 9 Mile in the agricultural parish of St. Anne in Jamaica's north central region. He grew up picking mangoes and collecting fallen branches for the evening fire. Around that fire, the elders sang old hymns and folk songs. There were precious few radios, phonographs, or even store-bought instruments. This was his world until he moved to Kingston for good in 1957, when he was 12 years old. When he got to the city and heard the sound of American artists such as Ray Charles and Louis Jordan, and later the Impressions, Marley added these new influences to the bedrock of his rural childhood. Coming from the country, explains Marley's eldest son Ziggy, you have a whole different experience. You're more connected to the earth. It's not such a dog-eat-dog way of life. My father would say that when you were in the country, people would say, "Good morning, how are you?" The guys from the country grew up with the patience of planting a seed and seeing it grow. The guys in the city didn't have that. Like Cliff, Hibbert and Winston burning Spear Rodney, Marley combined the spiritual optimism of his younger days up country with the hardened wariness that resulted in his urban adolescence. Even more than his colleagues, Marley carefully balanced these two aspects, acknowledging the justified anger and frustration of the Jamaican poor while providing reason to keep believing in a better world to come. There are musicians and then there are songwriters, says Jamaican pianist Monty Alexander, who released a jazz album of Marley's compositions called Stir It Up in 1999. But every once in a while, someone comes along who conjures up both words and music that captures your soul. Bob Marley was a rarity because he could do it with both words and music. He had a gift of melody as much as Cole Porter, George Gershwin, or any of those guys. He could connect the old folk music he heard in the countryside with the American R&B he heard on the radio and with the rhythms that anticipated the one-drop rhythm of reggae. This is especially obvious in No Woman No Cry. The title is sometimes misunderstood by American listeners as even if you don't have a woman, you don't need to cry. But what it actually means is, no my woman, don't you cry. The woman being addressed has every reason to cry, but the narrator does his best to calm her. Life is hard and the system is unfair, but she shouldn't give into despair. How can he convey both halves of the message in the same song? Bob understood our problems and could simplify them in such a manner that a lot of us songwriters struggle with, says Priest, who sang 2 songs in 2001 tribute album, A Twist of Marley. You begin a song and you go round and round in circles for days trying to find the words and lines that are strong enough and simple enough without being sappy. So many things have to be done in song and so many things that have been said and you don't want to repeat. But his stories are true life stories. I know those stories because we live a similar life in England. I sat by the fire, I ate that porridge. When he hits those chords for the hook, it all comes alive. Marley, Tosh and Livingston would go on to form a local vocal group called the Teenagers, then the Wailing Rude Boys, and then the Wailing Wailers, and finally the Wailers. They started out imitating American R&B groups such as the Drifters and the Impressions. But soon they started writing their own music and developing a distinctively Jamaican sound. In 1971, they celebrated their own neighbourhood in their #1 Jamaican single, Trenchtown Rock. You had a lot of music coming out of Trenchtown, Ziggy says. It was the Motown of Jamaica. This song is a celebration of not only him, Peter and Bunny, it's also a celebration of Desmond Dekker, Alton Ellis and the Wailing Souls. Tasha and Livingston left the Wailers in 1974 because they disliked international touring. Marley replaced their male harmonies with the female harmonies of the I3s, one of whom was his wife Rita Anderson Marley, but the three men remained friends. That's it for part 1. My reason for breaking this video up into 2 parts is because I want to make sure the videos are edited correctly, and I want to spend enough time making sure I create an informative video with the correct information. I hope, at least. Well, if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe for part 2 and for similar content in the future. Also, if you have any suggestions on what you would like me to cover, please let me know in the comment section. See you in the next video, guys.